Hello, everyone. Glad you could join us this evening, afternoon, morning, night, whatever it is, wherever you are. Today, we're going to be covering some updates on the Epstein files. New things were released, new documents were released towards the end of January of last month, and it's had major. Uh, uh, it's had a major impact all over the world, and it's just getting more and more severe. I think that the impact is the change that it's having on our world, with more and more files being released, and it's caused massive destabilization of the world, of world leaders, of world power, of those people that are making the decisions and making the calls. For the first time, I think, feeling the heat. And I think that that's a really good thing that this is coming out. So, hi, Neat. I'm glad you could join us. I was running a few minutes late, but I'm glad you could make it. So, yeah, I'm glad you could join us. There's been massive file release. The DOJ, Department of Justice, inadvertently, quote unquote, doxed 43 SA victims, which isn't good. So they had their names and their pictures in there. And even when they said it was redacted, the daughter of one of the victims said in an interview, well, the victim said, she said, my daughter put the documents through Microsoft Word redacted and was able to get it unredacted where my name was. So if she can do that at 16, anybody can do it. So this is the problem. The Department of Justice have released all this documents, but it's naming people who are vulnerable, who are fearful of revenge from these people who they have named, who these people who have all this power, all this money. You've just got to remember Andrew and what he did with Virginia Giuffre. He had his own personal Metropolitan Police Protection Officer look into her background, look into where she lived, look into if she had any criminal record and things like that. So it just shows you these people have good reason to be concerned, because they're not just naming some random rapist in the street. You know what I mean? They're naming people who are rapists, but who are not just some random guy in the street, some drug addict, some bum, some pervert on the street. These are people who may be all of those things, but they have power. They have more power than any of us in this chat or watching this right now can ever or will ever really understand, in a power, in a worldly sense, that they can make shit happen with the money and the influence and the friends they have, and they can get away with it. They can get away with things that we can't. And that's simple. So it should have been priority to make it so that these victims' names were withheld and couldn't be found, and so that the people who are being named and investigated can't know where to look to get this to, in their minds, go away, because they're just putting a target on these people's heads, and they know they are. I think that they know they are. And this is a way, I think, for the government, who are sweating bullets right now, to say, look, okay, we've named you. You know what that means? It means if you don't cool it, some things may happen to you. So I think that it's perfectly an example of government intimidation. Hi, Christina. I'm glad you could join us. I can only stay for a bit, but glad to be here. Sure, absolutely. I'm just glad you could make it, just to say hi. I really appreciate everyone who stops by, even for a minute or two. I know everyone's got a lot of stuff going on. Just having you make the effort to say hi means the world to me. So you're good, Neat. Thank you for joining us. They managed to redact the names of the men involved. Exactly. They managed to redact the names of people who it may be a national security risk for them to be named, and such, which I knew was going to be used. I knew that was going to be the case, that names would be redacted under the guise of protecting and maintaining national security, which is a line that is abused so often. And also is a line that is used to imprison people on spurious charges and allegations that the government don't like in order to protect national security. So this is some George Orwell type shit right here. And we shouldn't stand for it. You know, we shouldn't stand for it at all. It's Orwellian. You know, it's messed up. Glad to see you, Adrian. Just trying to find your comment to say hi. Oh yeah, hi. Glad you could make it, Adrian, and everyone just joining. We've got Coffee and Skeletons as well. Glad you could join us. But yeah, it's some real crazy stuff when you have the government in a not so indirect or secretive way, trying to intimidate and silence victims of SA. It's very, very concerning. All the things that may have been accredited to being like paranoid theories and delusions of people with psychosis or drug addicts or people who want to spread conspiracy theories about the rich and powerful to fit their own political agenda. It goes way beyond all that now. The evidence is right there. All you've got to do is look at it, and you can see what the people who are in control are really like behind closed doors. And it perturbs me, and it should perturb all of you, that the people who are in control of making the laws of the land and who are in control of the weapons, of the finances, of the media, of the entertainment, of the sports, of the music, of everything, are so deeply embedded in this web that it is so sinister and so messed up that it's difficult for someone who isn't a complete perv to be able to get their heads around it all, and that's by design. It's by design that way. So without the evidence staring you in the face, if you ever were to uncover any of this stuff, be you a journalist, be you a victim, be you someone like a celebrity who went to a party and saw the wrong thing, you'll be dismissed as a crank. You'll be dismissed as sour grapes, as a loony, whatever. And that was the case for a very long time. Look at the way people reacted to Isaac Cappy and what he was saying about people. And then he mysteriously decided to end his own life mysteriously by, quote unquote, jumping from a bridge, after saying essentially what we now all know to be true, that Hollywood and the powerful people in the world are all sex-crazed psychopaths who are deeply, deeply, deeply embedded in a ring of blackmail and control. So it's staring us right in the face, guys, and you have to be a fool to deny it now. And for me, someone who has known this to be true for a long time, this isn't some great victory lap. It doesn't change the fact that this is still going on and that there's still such a disconnect of the balance of power in the world, so that people like who have committed these crimes and not being arrested and not being imprisoned are being publicly shamed as opposed to held accountable in courts. The process is moving a lot slower than it would for a normal person. And that isn't creating some great victory lap for me and for others like me who have already, spoken on this and knew about this, but were dismissed as cranks. This is just it's more difficult, I suppose, because it's more in the open now, and it's more evident that the power that they really have and the lack of accountability that they're facing, in terms of what they should be facing. So let's go for it. The Clintons have agreed to testify before Congress. And this is the thing. It's like they're getting people accused of sex crimes, accused of being concerned with human trafficking, to simply just testify at hearings. If these was just ordinary gangsters, like Eastern Europeans who are trafficking women, who are engaging in sex drug parties, these people would already be on criminal trial and would be facing like 20, 30 years of federal charges, on RICO charges and things like that. But no, not for the Clintons. not for Andrew Mountbatten, formerly Prince Andrew, not for Peter Mandelson, not for Les Wexner, not for any of these people. The only person who's in jail, is in prison, is Ghislaine Maxwell, and she's at a cushy little place where they learn and where they train assistance dogs, like guide dogs and things like that, dogs for the blind and things like that. So it's hardly some, Alcatraz type regime where she's actually being punished. It's a holiday retreat. She's in there with white collar criminals, with women who have committed financial crimes, not sex crimes. So it just shows you, where is the justice? Where is the justice? It's pure, blatant corruption, and the system is rotten to the core. And you're not going to be able to. Nobody's going to be able to just walk in there and change it, because, like what we've seen so many times, you go in there and try and work and change the system, and then eventually, like so many others, you get absorbed within it. You get blackmailed. You get compromised. And a lot of people say Trump was compromised after he became president. No, he was compromised way before. That's the only reason he was able to get so far with it. Examples of people who weren't compromised and ran for the president would be Ross Perot and Pat Buchanan, and neither of those guys were able to get elected purely in the fact that they weren't compromised. And when it looked like they could get elected and weren't compromised, Ross Perot was threatened with the murder of his own daughter by several constant harassing phone calls and notes, and he said, it isn't worth it for me to have my daughter killed. And Pat Buchanan actually was the victim of a slanderous lie campaign done by Donald Trump when they were both in the Reform Party in the USA, not the Reform UK Party, the Reform USA Party, back when Trump was running initially in the 2000 presidential election, and Pat Buchanan was trying to run in that as well. And Trump spread a lie that Pat Buchanan was this ultra right wing, essentially a white supremacist, and that if he was elected, he'd bring back bringing gas chambers and concentration camps. When Pat Buchanan's running mate was a black woman, and Pat Buchanan was a respected, member of Nixon's cabinet and a well-known Republican for a long time. So to make these allegations, these spuriously false allegations against Pat Buchanan, which cost him significant support in his bid to become the Reform Party nominee, which Trump eventually got, was an example of political control, of this game of blackmail, of you don't get in the door, you don't get a chance unless you're blackmailed. So you go out and say, right, I'm going to get in there, I'm going to change things. You're not going to get in. It's not, there's no democracy. It's an illusion. It's an illusion. It's fixed. It's a fix. It's like professional wrestling. We all cheer for who we like, the heel, the baby face. But in the end, the outcome is already predetermined behind the scenes, and the two wrestlers know exactly how it's going to go down and are in cahoots with each other. And I don't think anything in our history has exposed that to be true, other than the Epstein files and the revelations that this has brought up. I totally agree. Before, for sure. Totally before. Absolutely. Hi, Amber. Glad you could join us. I know you're probably putting the baby down for some sleep, but I'm glad you could make the effort. Hi, Coffee and Skeletons. Glad you could make it. But yeah, it's this type of, I guess, reality breaking moment is what it is. It's not really reality breaking. It's an illusion breaking moment. And I was saying in Melly's live to her last night, that one girl, Melly, you should check out her channel. She's been doing lives about the Epstein files and true crime as well. And I was saying to her, it feels like we're in a movie. You know what I mean? It feels like the Matrix, like, even for me, someone who suspected this stuff to be true for a long time and really felt it, you know what I mean? To have it essentially confirmed, it does take some getting used to, because, like I said, this isn't some victory lap for me. It's horrifying the fact that this stuff is so blatantly in our face, that our leaders, the people we look to for guidance and for direction, are so directionless, are so depraved and evil, and easy to compromise and control. You know, it makes me very worried, you know, about the world, you know. But it gives me faith, though, at the same time, that with this awakening and recalibration of people's perceptions of reality, that we can throw out these people and who are like this and restructure our society accordingly, without the old systems that have been ingrained for so long. Because I think that these systems have made it so that what has happened with Epstein, mass sex abuse, mass corruption, mass blackmail, mass manipulation of intelligence services using blackmail, can be achieved. Our system enables it. You know what I mean? Our society enables it. The way our governments are structured enables it. The way our media is structured enables it. Every little thing about the way we live enables this kind of thing to happen. So, in order to prevent this stuff from happening, I think we need to reflect on how we live as people and how we govern ourselves as a society, and who we look to govern us, and reassess that. And I'm not calling for some violent revolution or anything like that, because that would be simply resorting to these people's tactics, because these people deal in threats and intimidation and coercion and violence. The way you can free yourself from them is by knowing their games, so that they can't play them on you. The only place that they can't shackle you, I suppose, or can control what you do or where you go or what you work, or you know, where you are, is your mind. You know, you're free in your mind. You know, the only chains in your mind are the ones that you allow or that you put there yourself. You know, once you're wise to these people's games, the people in power, the manipulation, the lies, the division tactics, the order out of chaos, Illuminati, call it whatever you want. You know, once you're wise to this, you become a lot harder to delude and to trick, and then you're not following their agenda. You're living your own life. You're not feeding into this system. And what we must be careful to do when going through all this is to not be so incensed and divided by it, and say, oh, it's all a Republican thing, oh, it's all a Democrat thing, oh, it's a left-wing thing, oh, it's a right-wing thing, oh, it's an Israel thing, oh, it's a Russia thing, oh, it's an American thing. It's an everything. It's a cancer that's permeated our world. These files cover people from all over the world that he had connections with, Epstein, that were participating in his activities, that were involved in it, that were turning blind eyes to it, that were funding it. You know, this is a cross section of people all over the world, and this is, you know, something that I don't think can just be wished away or willed away by any kind of inquiry or rhetoric. It's going to take society, like I said, as a whole, to have a real hard look at itself before we can move forward. It's an elite thing, and they should all be held accountable. I completely agree. But there lies in the difficulty. They're elites. How do we hold them accountable? When you control the balance of power, who are you really answerable to? You know what I mean? Like, for example, in Britain, you know, the king can't be put on trial because he's the king, because it's His Majesty's courts, His Majesty's prisons, His Majesty's police service. So think of that logic when thinking of these people. they'll have a few sacrificial lambs, I'm sure, from this whole thing, like we've seen with Maxwell and Epstein, and there'll be a few others that will possibly do prison time or be in court, and we'll get onto that later on in the live. But ultimately, it will not. It will not. I don't think Andrew's going to do a day in jail. If that was going to be on the cards, he'd flee to Bahrain, as we've discussed previously. But we'll get into that. Now I'm going to go and discuss the specific cases and people who have been affected by recent new disclosures in the documents, and that's what I'll be reading through now. So yeah, Mandelson, Peter Mandelson, who was until only a few months ago the British ambassador to the USA, so a very important post to have. He was obviously lost that post. Peter Mandelson was a long-time friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and it's now been proven that Epstein funneled 140 grand into Peter Mandelson's husband's bank account under the guise that it was for courses in massage therapy or something stupid like that. As the cause for it, when it was clearly for being paid for Mandelson to lobby for Epstein, and also for Mandelson to leak Epstein information. Mandelson's appointment recently as the ambassador for Britain to America wasn't his first government appointment. He'd been appointed in 3 different Labour Party governments. He was instrumental in getting Tony Blair elected in 1997. Peter Mandelson, was one of the architects of New Labour, the New Labour Party. The old Labour Party were a socialist party, very linked to trade unions, explicitly a socialist party. And then Tony Blair and Peter Mandelson and Gordon Brown and a bunch of other people came in and made it a social democrat party. So more in line with the Democrats in the United States, as opposed to a socialist party, which it used to be. And Mandelson was instrumental in that and getting Tony Blair elected. And through that, Mandelson was Tony Blair's right-hand man. He was appointed Northern Ireland secretary during the Irish peace process. So that was a really significant appointment that Mandelson got. And during this time, in the late 90s and early 2000s, Mandelson was visiting Epstein's island. Mandelson was partying with Jeffrey Epstein. Mandelson was photographed wearing only his underpants in the present, talking to what looked like a young girl or young woman at Epstein's island. Mandelson claims to be homosexual, but people say they're one thing all the time and actually aren't. So just because Mandelson says he's gay doesn't mean that he wasn't also engaging sexually with these trafficked women. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that at all. People lie about it all the time. So Mandelson may well, I'm not saying he did, but being pictured only wearing your underpants, talking to a girl or a young woman who is the victim of trafficking on an island that's known as a paedophile, sex-crazed maniac's play place, doesn't look good. You know what I mean? There's only a couple of conclusions that you can draw from that. Whether you call yourself gay or not, it looks fucking suspicious. And Mandelson didn't answer that, hasn't answered about anything to do with that. And Mandelson also, during the 2008 financial crash, after he'd already been booted out of Tony Blair's cabinet for alleged misconduct, which he was cleared of, he then got an appointment in the next Labour government, in Gordon Brown's government. And this was during the financial crash of 2008. Peter Mandelson, whilst in a government meeting with Gordon Brown, was discussing things about potential bankers' bonuses, taxes, because the people in the world were rightfully angry that bankers had caused the financial crash, and that we as the taxpayer were being expected to foot the recovery bill. And then we would see bankers allowing and paying themselves massive bonuses. And what Gordon Brown wanted to do was to tax those bonuses so that some of the bonuses, the money would actually go back to the taxpayer in theory through government projects and things, or maybe some kind of rebate program. But the lefties don't really like doing things like that. They prefer to invest it in public services as opposed to give you money outright. But that's just them. That's the way they do economics. But yeah, Epstein was told in this meeting by Mandelson, right after this meeting, by over an email of his own personal email account, not his government one. And all government business, if you're a minister, should be done through your email, your official government email account, so it can be tracked, monitored, logged, and things like that, so that there's no shifty dealings going on. But it wasn't. He sent it over his own personal one that wasn't monitored by government and wasn't like official. And he sent Mandelson sent Epstein information that bankers' bonuses are going to be capped, and he said, bankers' bonuses are going to be capped, and Epstein was like, that can't happen. That cannot happen, because Epstein was big in with JP Morgan and many other financial institutions, and he was, advising them, had positions with them, and would refer his friends to make accounts with them and other things like that. So Epstein was talking to JP Morgan whilst getting this information from Mandelson, saying, look, Gordon Brown's going to say bankers' bonuses going to be taxed. JP Morgan was then said to Epstein, well, tell Mandelson that if Gordon Brown does want to tax our bonuses, we won't open our new offices in London and we won't do business in the UK ever again. And then Jeffrey got that information and then said to Peter Mandelson, here's the score. You tell him this. You tell him, you say, if we did that, Gordon, then maybe JP Morgan won't want to do business with us anymore, won't want to open their new offices in the Docklands and other things like that. And that could really hurt London's economy. And it may put off other people, other financial investors from investing in London, and other bankers, which we really need because we're in the midst of a financial crash. We need recovery. We're in recovery. That's what they need. But that would have sounded pretty reasonable. But the reasoning for this was because Mandelson was literally a puppet for JP Morgan and Jeffrey Epstein in the cabinet. And he was being paid, and when he did that, he was paid through his husband £140,000. And he's a bit cheap. Let's just say that. He could have asked for a lot more money than that. That information was worth a lot more in stocks to JP Morgan and to Jeffrey Epstein. But Mandelson took a lot less. And I don't know. I think he's kicking himself right now. I think he's kicking himself that he didn't ask for $1 million. Because his career, his reputation is absolutely ruined. And they used to call him the Prince of Darkness, Peter Mandelson. And they used to say that he had 9 lives and that he's the comeback kid. But, he's not coming. But, Peter, you're not coming back from this one. You're not coming back from this one. You're absolutely out the door now. And you are screwed, my friend. But, yeah, it's crazy. I will be getting on to Bill Gates. Very soon. Very soon. I'm glad everyone's sticking with me for this. Bill Gates is actually next on my notes. So it's funny, Amber does this. You've done this on a few lives before, Amber, where you've mentioned something, and it has actually been the next thing for me to talk about in my notes. So you may have some telekinesis, some psychical abilities. I actually, not related to this. I've always believed that, like, recent mothers have certain added spiritual abilities, and you only had your recent kid recently. You've only had your kid recently, your latest one, and I think that there's a certain magic that goes alongside with that. I wonder if Andrew will take his teddy bears. Yeah, the guy has like what 70 fucking 4 teddy bears and shit. But yeah, we'll get on to him too. There's updates about him. But yeah, Mandelson, the guy's career's over. He leaked, that, and then he also told Epstein that. Listen, this gets worse. He sent Epstein a text saying, "Finally convinced Gordon Brown to resign as prime minister." So before the press knew, before anybody knew, Epstein knew that Gordon Brown was going to be stepping down as prime minister in 2010, and yeah, and as a result of that, Epstein passed this information on to all of his people in JP Morgan, all of his investment people, and all of his market people, and then used that to make money, knowing how that announcement would affect the market. And that's blatantly illegal and blatantly criminal. And the Met Police are currently investigating Peter Mandelson. I think Peter Mandelson may go to prison for this. I think that he's already lost his lordship. Well, he's been banned from the House of Lords. So this means that he's been stripped of his peerage. He's been the first person to do so in theory, but they need the law to pass. But it seems like it will pass. And if it does pass, they've already drafted it, I've been told, and they're getting it ready to put into the House of Lords and for the Commons, and I'm pretty sure it will pass. But that will mean that it's the first time a House of Lords member has actually been stripped of that title. And the House of Lords isn't an elected body. The House of Commons is like Congress. It's a wholly elected body, the Commons. But the House of Lords is appointed. You're gifted a peerage. You're gifted to be a lord or a lady in the House of Lords. And then also church people, the lead rabbi of Britain and some Muslim imams also get, I think the Muslims do, I know a rabbi does, get access to the House of Lords as well as sitting members. Hi Val, so glad you could join us. Yeah, we're underway with the Epstein updates. We're talking about Peter Mandelson right now, who was like a big figure in UK politics up until only recently. Only a few months ago, the guy was UK ambassador for America, so like a major job, a major appointment. And this guy, Peter Mandelson, photographed on Epstein Island in his underwear, right next to a very young-looking girl or woman, and on Epstein Island. And Peter Mandelson claims to be gay, but people claim to be a lot of things. It doesn't mean that they necessarily are, So it makes you think that Peter Mandelson is possibly involved with Epstein like that. But also, Peter Mandelson was involved in cabinet in basically the right-hand man of prime ministers of two different prime ministers, 3 if you count the most current one, Keir Starmer. But he was very close with Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. And during the financial crash, it's been proven that Peter Mandelson passed on really sensitive government information to Epstein, which Epstein used to help himself financially and his friends in the market. So, Mandelson is an example of a guy in Britain so close to power, so close to men of power and government, that was like Jeffrey's best friend, basically. And he used to describe Jeffrey Epstein as being like Gatsby. I used to call him Great Gatsby, and like that. And he was basically besotted by this guy, in a weird way, kind of in love with him, even knowing what type of man he was, a predator. This is some really messed up stuff. And this guy was, high up in the British government, and we went through earlier that the Clintons have announced that they're going to testify at a hearing in Congress. But like, it's crazy, don't you think, Val, and everyone watching? Like, if a normal person who doesn't have all this power and status, is involved in trafficking or is involved in crimes, they don't go to Congress for an inquiry. They're in court, charged with crimes, and that's the way we do things. But why aren't we doing things with these people? It totally undermines our justice system and law and order if the law only applies to, people who aren't in power. Like, why should we follow the law if it only applies to specific people? The law, if it's going to be there, has to apply to everybody equally. That's what the founding fathers, believe. That's why America was created, to separate them, the settlers, the colonizers, to separate them from Britain and Europe, where that was the case and still is the case. Where if you are powerful, if you are a king, if you are in power and rich and connected, you can get away with murder and you can oppress people and you can take advantage of people and you can be a bully and an abuser. And America was founded on the idea that we're going to get rid of these tyrants. We're going to not allow that. But somewhere down the line, those founding ideals were completely eroded, and America became just like every other country in the world, just like the countries it was trying to get away from, just like Britain. Yeah, America doesn't have a king or a royal family, but the way the Clintons are treated, the way Trump's treated, the way Musk is treated, the way Gates is treated, the way all these people are treated, it's like a royal family. They get to do what they like, with very little repercussions, and you wonder why we have so much war in the world. We've got these people leading us. We've got people who are mentally deranged, as deranged as can be. And I'm afraid America has lost its way. I completely agree. I think the Federal Reserve and the Electoral College are two things that ruined America. I also think that allowing the European system of things, the cloak and dagger manipulation, behind the scenes crap, which has now all been exposed. What I'm talking about, eyes wide shut type things. All the sex parties and blackmailing, which is has its origins in Europe. Well, its origins in the Middle East, but in most recent times Europe. But yeah, allowing all that in, it's rotted it to the core. But I think that the world's lost its way mainly. I think that, but then we go back to my other lives where I talk about, like, back in the ancient Middle Eastern days before Christianity, Judaism, Islam was created. You had the Canaanites, and you had people who were sacrificing their own kids and doing depraved sex rituals for their gods, you know what I mean, their false gods. So, like, we have proof that that's what these people were doing in these parties on these islands, that he had a little chapel for his weird, perverted, Kabbalah type activities, Epstein and other elites. And they, I think Epstein, used it to attract people who were more interested in that than he was. I think Epstein was more interested in the flesh than any kind of beliefs. Money equals free speech, according to Supreme Court. Oh, you're absolutely right, Clearwater Gacy. You're absolutely right. If the founding fathers could see what America is now, they would revolt. They would revolt, and I don't think that they'd have even bothered of trying back in the day, back in 1776, to kick the Brits out. I don't think that they'd have even, because what's the point? What's the point? it's basically just the same as all these, you know, European elite countries controlled by elites and blackmail and perversion at the top, and one rule for thee and not for me. You know, it's a farce. We live in a farce, you know, and the best way to combat it is to confront it and say it for what it is, you know, and like I've said earlier, understand the patterns and the games that these people want us to play. They want us to fight each other so that we ignore all this crap about them. They want us to be shooting each other in the streets over which political party we support. They want us rioting and beating up each other. They want all of that because it distracts us from this, the fact that they, as our supposed leaders, are knee deep in sex crimes and blackmail and you know, extortion and possibly worse. You know, there was mention of human sacrifices in those documents. You know what I mean? And we haven't got onto that yet, but I certainly have that feeling myself, and that was my first reaction to the story, that a family member was involved. So stay tuned, and when we get through all this Epstein stuff, I'll certainly go back to that, because I do agree with you. I think you're very right there. Allowing corporations the same consideration as individuals has allowed money to buy power. Exactly. Corporate entities should not be given the same liberties as the individual. Once that being the case, puts us into this kind of you know, totalitarian corporate dictatorship. You know what I mean? Which is what it is. You know, we're the wishes and the whims of a corporate entity outweigh what's better and good for the individual people. You know, that's the problem. You know, it's greed, and greed can manifest in many ways: financial greed, sexual perversions, and control, power, greed, hunger for power, and these people who are in these positions are all like that by design. You know, anyone who's kind of level-headed, they will never give the chance. Ironically, the people that the media and that the system will portray as lunatic fringe candidates, probably the best candidates that are out there, but you know, they're never going to be allowed in, even if they, like I said earlier, got the votes. So voting in elections are really just a waste of time. At the end of the day, it's all theatre, you know. It really is. I mean, sorry to get people down, but I'm not going to lie to you and say that it isn't, because it is. But you know, hopefully, we as a society can grow and learn more. They definitely say that there was murder. Exactly. And you know, Virginia Giuffre, if she was going to take her own life, she would have taken it years ago. She was killed, you know, and Epstein was either killed or his death was faked, and he's living in Israel in some secret bunker or something. Because none of that was. You have to be some kind of idiot at this point to just accept the mainstream narratives on these things. You have to be really naive, and the days of people feeling smart because they're parroting the mainstream are long gone. Anyone doing that now is correctly seen as a moron by most people, I think, thankfully. I might be wrong. That might be wishful thinking, but from what I can see online, at least, there has been a change. People like my own family, for example, my mother, my father, who were very cynical about accepting these kinds of things about people in power and stuff like that. My father's of a Roman Catholic background, where, you know, you're always taught to be very respectful and, you know, permissive and passive towards and submissive to people in authority. It's a big part of Catholicism, that submission to authority, the church being the main authority. But which is probably why my dad finds it difficult to criticize the powers that be. But even he's coming round to this and seeing that the reality of this level of corruption and dirt in the system. And sorry, we need to get at the end rid of super PAC money. There is definitely a downfall of the country's corporations making decisions instead of people. Look at the whole opioid epidemic. Exactly. In America is possibly one of the most socially Darwinian countries in the world. It's the world power. It's the richest country, but you could say it's the richest country because it is the most socially Darwinian. Those who are able and who have the right connections to be powerful can become very powerful. And those who have disadvantages, well, sorry, sucks to be you. That's the way America works. And that's why it's the most richest country. Because if you're, vulnerable or weak, or you're not born with the silver spoon in hand, as the Creedence Clearwater Revival song would go. Fortunate son would go. Then you ain't worth shit. Basically, you're a nobody. Your views and your wills don't matter, and you're expendable to the system. That's how these people see you. If these people can sexually abuse kids, is it that much of a stretch that they look at us as being just guinea pigs that they can ply with opioids and make money off? The opioid crisis is an example of that greed in America, where because you're paying for the drugs, because it's being paid, it's the doctors prescribing these stuff are glorified drug dealers with a license. These people who overprescribe them and prescribe them when not needed are exactly like the street dealer, and in my view, should be given the same penalties of long terms of imprisonment, but most oftentimes aren't, and the people don't see it in the same way. But I do, and I've been lucky. I've talked about substance abuse on this channel before. I'm lucky that I never got into opioids, because I'll tell you now, if I was into opioids, if I was into heroin, I'd be dead, because the way I used to take cocaine, the way I do things in excess. I do everything in life to excess. It's just who I am as a person. It's my personality type. So yeah, I'm lucky that I didn't, get into that. And for those that did and that died, there's so many. It's a generation of people. Hi, Amy. Glad you could join us. Amy Boston, who has a great true crime channel. She's been looking at the John Benet Ramsey case recently, which is a very interesting case. And I suggest all of you who are not subscribed to Amy, go and subscribe to her. Because she's a wealth of true crime information. And she has that Boston accent that I know everyone who was watching the Karen Reid trial. I know, Val, you love hearing the Boston accent and missed it because the trial was over. So yeah, if you want your Boston accent fix, you can go to Amy Boston and she'll give it you. Yeah, I remember Amy mentioning on her live when I told her to go and in the chat, when I told her in chat to go and be in Amber's ATS's chat more and interact with the community more, because we're all nice. Because I just stumbled upon her live through the algorithm randomly and asked her, did she watch ATS News? And because Amber's a cool channel, big channel, And she'd said, yeah. And then she was all like, oh, I don't want to go in because of my accent. People might, think it's obnoxious and stuff. It's like everyone I speak to loves the Boston accent, you know what I mean? And like the highlight of watching the retrial was getting to hear all the accents, you know what I mean? Because it's just so great to listen to. But yeah, it's I'm glad you could join us. And yeah, it's good. It's good to have you here. But yeah, we're just talking about Epstein at the moment. We'll get on to Nancy Guthrie soon. But yeah, Bill Gates, who we're talking about, in these new leaked documents, it's rumored that Bill Gates got an STD from a Russian sex worker that Epstein trafficked to him, and that he was worried that he'd given it to his ex-wife, and was talking with Epstein about roofing she was his wife then, but she's now his ex-wife, about roofing her and giving her antibiotics and STD medication so that it will clear and she will not know about it. And my thinking is, why didn't he just use a condom? I know it's kind of I know it sounds kind of crude, but that entire scenario could have been avoided if you just used protection. I don't know why. He might have something against it. I mean, I know some people, say things that like they don't like using it, but I think anyone in this day and age who won't use protection is an absolute moron when they do that and then expect not to get an STD, especially when they're having it with a sex worker, someone who's been trafficked, that's their job to do that. So, I don't know what he was thinking there. And he's just, Bill Gates, always been a creepy bastard, I thought. Always been a very, very weird guy. And one of the richest guys in the world, influential in computing, in finance. He's a creep, like many others, and a real creep, a real predator. You know what I mean? Sick shit. Talking about drugging his wife to give her the antibiotics because of not being able to confront the shame of what you'd done. And that's you'll see that with all these men, these predators, and women, because there's women involved in this, Maxwell and other women who were assisting Epstein and abusing girls with him as well. You'll find with these people that they're all weak. They're all weak. Once you take down their little status and protection, once you get them on their own, they're weak as shit. You know what I mean? All these predators, they're all the same. And Bill Gates is a little pissant, little nerd. And I think that in his mind, can you imagine that? Oh my God, exactly, Amy. It's insane. He was talking about roofing his wife. It beggars belief. But yeah, and also we'll get on to Andrew and Fergie now. Former Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife. Sarah Ferguson said in an email to Epstein just after he'd been released for doing a sentence for trafficking minors that she could, quote, just marry him. And she said, shut up and marry me. And that she also was going to talked about taking Princess Beatrice and Eugenie to see Epstein. And this was just as he'd been released from his sentence from trafficking underage children for sex. And Sarah Ferguson was bringing her then 19-year-old and 20-odd-year-old daughters to see Epstein. Like, what's the logic in that? You know what I mean? Did Epstein abuse Beatrice and Eugenie? That remains to be seen. If he did, you know, they should talk about it. You know what I mean? Uh, if anyone, you know, is going to be able to have at least some level of protection, it's going to be them, because they've already got their royal protection people that followed them around everywhere that keep them safe. So if that had happened to them, you know, they should probably say it. You know, less people might start wondering whether they were helping Epstein, whether they were linking up friends to Epstein, you know what I mean, so that Epstein could abuse them. I'm just speculating here, but I'm not. This isn't speculation without, you know, good reason. You know what I mean? There's a lot of precedent for me to suspect that because of what the guy was convicted for and what he's known to have done. But I can't imagine a mother. I mean, Amy, you're a mother. Amber, you're a mother. And there are probably a lot of other mothers in here. Would you take your kid to a guy, even if they were 18, 19? I know that's an adult, but still they're a kid. You know what I mean? 18, 19, they're still a kid. Like, would you take your kid to see a guy who's just done a sentence for trafficking minors, for sex trafficking kids, and talk to him in such a way? It's just it's unhuman. It's not human. It goes against nature. You know, you're supposed to protect your young. She was putting her daughters Beatrice and Eugenie in major harm's way by bringing them to see Epstein at that age. You know, it's outrageous. It's terrible. And Andrew has also, in the last few days, been kicked out of his home at Royal Lodge, and he might be moving to his little farmhouse on the Frogmore estate. They've got a little farmhouse reserved for him to stay on. But hi Val, glad you're still listening. And my view is that Andrew's going to bail to Bahrain, because in Bahrain, I think I've already mentioned this in one of my previous lives, Bahrain have a royal family, and their royal family is pretty close with the British royal family. They get on. So the Bahraini royal family is already bought a palace for Andrew and have it fully staffed, and they've bought and paid for it all. So all he has to do is go there. And the thing about Bahrain is they don't extradite with anybody. They don't have a treaty with anybody. Oh, you're just making dinner. Oh, that's great. What are you having, Val? I'd love to know. I had dinner earlier. I had pulled pork on some like tiger bread. It was really nice. So yeah, I know that's kind of off topic, but I think it's nice to balance things out with something kind of normal. You know, when we're talking about shit that's so heavy, you know, it's nice to kind of be human for a second and change the tempo. But yeah, as not a chance. Money and influence seem to have a way of forgiving the unforgivable, though. Exactly, and you're right about that, Neat Noodle. Sarah Ferguson was, you know, obviously she was known for spending money like crazy. Oh, homemade mac and cheese, not Kraft, even though that's good too. Oh, that's great. Sounds really nice. Hope you enjoy it. Yeah, I'm glad you're here. I really appreciate you joining me. Well, I did not know that. Yeah, and Sarah Ferguson. Oh, thanks, Val. That's really sweet. Yeah, but Sarah Ferguson was like desperate for money. She was known for spending loads of money. Like even like when she was married to Andrew and a royal, she like would get money from Parliament or like the royal bursary every year, and she just absolutely get about 250 grand. And for most, like 99% of people in the world, 250 grand to just go around and meet people and shake hands, and it's a pretty sweet gig. And living in palaces where you've got staff and all this kind of thing is a pretty sweet gig. You know, I wouldn't, you know, be trying to make more money on the side of that, but she did, and she would do deals like offer cash for access for people. So she was caught on a very sweet gig. She was caught on hidden camera by the News of the World, which was like used to be like a major tabloid in Britain until they had to shut down because they were exposed for phone hacking people, many people. And I might do a live on that scandal soon. I think it would be quite interesting for the Americans to hear about this News of the World. But yeah, she was recorded on secret cameras by News of the World, but by this guy who was pretending to be like a fake, like Dubai, was pretending to be like a prince from Dubai, and was saying, "Look, Sarah Ferguson, I'll give you 500 grand, which I have in these briefcases, if you give me access to Prince Andrew." And this was when Prince Andrew was trade envoy for the UK. So access to Prince Andrew as trade envoy could mean that like this guy, basically this fake sheikh, was saying like maybe he could get me a passport for Britain, maybe he could get me residency, maybe he could get me this, maybe he could get me that. You know what I mean? And trying all this stuff to see if she'd buy it, and she'd bit on every single one. All this stuff that he shouldn't be, abusing his privileges to get people special treatment in exchange for money. Big no. And she was just saying, "Yep, cash in hand, goes to me. He'll agree to it. We're in this together." Basically. And then she did a 180 after it and denied it and said, "Oh, it was all her idea and he had no idea about it." Of course, he knew absolutely all about it. He was in on this too because he spent like crazy as well. And was Charles friends with Jimmy Savile? That isn't a little off topic. That's very on topic. What we're talking about. Charles was very close friends with Jimmy Savile, and Jimmy Savile, for those of you who don't know, was like probably Britain's most prolific, worst paedophile sex criminal ever. The guy had confirmed about 1,000 victims in that whole, and he was offending from doing sex crimes from the late 1950s up until the late 2000s, and he was never in court once. And Jimmy Savile was very close friends with the royal family, and that's why he was never in court once. And Jimmy Savile's like Britain's Jeffrey Epstein. There you go. He had all the connections. He had all the friends. You know what I mean? He had all the parties. He was Britain's Jeffrey Epstein for sure, and he was very close with Charles. He was Charles's advisor. He gave Charles advice when he was married with Diana, which is weird because Jimmy Savile was never married, was an eternal bachelor, and actually famously hated the idea of marriage. So why he was going to him for advice on marriage is beyond me. But Jimmy Savile gave advice to Charles on many things about charity, about how to engage with the public, and about how to deal with crisis as well. Something that Jimmy Savile was very good at, dealing with crisis situations, because Jimmy Savile had a lot of near misses. Just because he was never in court didn't mean he was never nearly in court. He was nearly in court many times, but he was able, with his connections, with his ability to manipulate and to call in favors from people, able to dodge that. And this is how Epstein operated. It's exactly the same way Epstein operated, and Charles was friendly with Jimmy, and Charles gave King Charles gave Jimmy a note on his 80th birthday in 2006 saying, "Jimmy, no one will know what you've done for this country." Which is an odd thing to say because everybody knew what Jimmy Savile had done for the country. If you're talking about his charity work, everybody knew he was a charity fundraiser. If he was a DJ, he did a lot for pop culture. He gave the Beatles airplay in their early days and things like that. So yeah, the things that before it was exposed he was a sex criminal that people would think he'd done for the country were all very well known, and it makes you think, what was he talking about? What didn't people know that Jimmy Savile did for the country? What the fuck does that even mean? And for me personally, I think that Savile was used like Jeffrey Epstein was used as a person who would facilitate sex abuse, sex parties, would do it themselves, would participate, but would entice and identify others to get involved in it with them, and then blackmail them keep them in line, keep them in control, in power, and for the system and for intelligence agencies. So I think that Jimmy Savile and Jeffrey Epstein were both intelligence assets, and that the intelligence agencies use people who commit sex abuses, who are involved in drugs or in other compromising activities for important people, to give them information, so that the government and the authorities know who's stepping out of line and how they can be controlled as a result of that. Because that's the greatest way to control somebody, is to catch them with their pants down, so to speak. So that's the logic, I think. And Charles was very close to Savile. Savile was a sir, a knight, and Charles actually considered making Jimmy Savile the godfather to his kids, to William and Harry. So wouldn't that have been a horrifying thing? I bet them two are glad that never happened. But yeah, thanks Amber for that. But yeah, it wasn't off topic. Christine, and I'm glad you brought it up. Very good thing to raise. And I am interested to figure out if Jimmy Savile and Jeffrey Epstein ever had any dealings with each other, because you'd think that they would. Because, I mean, when Epstein was really on the scene with Andrew and all these people, it was the 90s and the 2000s. And Savile at that point was pretty old, was like in his 70s and his 80s. But, Jimmy Savile's last recorded offense was in 2009, when he was like 83. So when he groped a woman on a train. So, yeah, he was still doing it up until only a few years before he died. So there's a good chance that their paths crossed, because they did run in the same circles, and they were personality-wise incredibly similar people. Psychopathic sex criminals, pedophiles with no remorse for what they did at all. With no empathy for people. You've got to not have empathy. That's the thing. You look at all these leaders, none of them have empathy. You know what I mean? You've got to not be able to have empathy to be able to make calls of, okay, let's bomb this village and just to get this potential terrorist. And the chances are that we're going to kill a lot of innocent people, maybe even children. But fuck it, it's just collateral damage. You've got to be like that. I think that they want you to be like that, to be in positions of power. So that you can be heartless, so that you can be detached and can make these decisions and not feel bad about them. When really, if the leaders actually did analyze these things and think maybe not mass carpet bombing of places is the right thing, maybe not risking innocent people dying is a good idea, maybe we should rethink that, then the whole idea and concept of order out of chaos that I was talking to you about earlier, that these people thrive on, would be thrown out the wayside, and we would be reintroduced to a world that's made out of balance and harmony, which is what nature's supposed to be, and the way our lives are supposed to be, through balance, through nature, through harmony of energies. But when you have people in power dedicating their lives to unbalancing the energy of the world, you get a state of affairs like this, where we have a society of people who are full of mental illness and drug addiction, and dealing with shit day by day, and feel trapped and controlled, and like that we're basically powerless to this. This is exactly how they want us to feel. And like I said earlier, the best way to rebel against this is in the mind. Don't let them control your mind. You have the freedom within your own mind. That is crazy. Thanks for the info. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this stuff it's so crazy. Like even if it was in a movie, it would be hard to follow. Eyes Wide Shut doesn't do this stuff justice. It has been said that a lot of that movie was cut. That there were about 30 minutes cut out. You know what I mean? And dread to think what that actually was that was cut out, because it's clear that Hollywood didn't want that movie made, because it's exposing exactly what all this is, that what we're discussing, and it's crazy. And Elon Musk is mentioned in the emails, and the thing that people really didn't want to be mentioned was that Trump met his wife Melania through Epstein, and this is something that Trump tried to get hidden from a book by Andrew Lowry, who did a biography, an unauthorized biography about the former Prince Andrew, who's a very interesting character. He's a guy, Andrew Lowry, who, has really exposed a lot of the dirty dealings of the royal family in recent years. And anyone interested in finding out about this stuff should certainly buy Andrew Lowry's book about Andrew, about the Yorks, Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. It's about both of them. So I would definitely recommend doing that. And so, yeah, the Trump met his wife, Melania, through Epstein. He introduced them. So that's something that people and Trump really doesn't want out. And like I'm saying this, there is nothing in there that proves that Trump is a sex offender or is a rapist. But what I can say is that Trump has allowed himself to have those accusations made against him by not being transparent enough, by not coming clean fully way earlier and wanting total reveal. Because the fact that he was a lot closer with Epstein and did get on with him is the truth, and that Melania was introduced to him by Epstein, and his refusal to and uneasiness for that to come out is because he wants to be seen as a perfect person by his followers, when that's ludicrous. Nobody is a perfect person. There's an old Irish proverb that translates to there's no man without fault. You know what I mean? There's nobody without fault. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has lapses of judgment. Everybody fucks up, and it's just determining about how fucked this is. You know what I mean? He is already convicted civilly as being a sex offender. That's true, but there's nothing in the Epstein files that conclusively says that Trump was on the island assaulting girls or women. That's what I'm essentially talking about. There's nothing in there that has said that, and civil courts I believe it's probably true he did do that in his civil court hearing, but like I said, that isn't criminal. He's held civilly liable as opposed to criminally liable, and there's a difficulty there. He's not technically a sex offender by law. He was found civilly liable to committing a sex crime, but the penalty of that was that he paid. He wasn't classified, legally speaking, as a sex offender, but by the definition of a predator, of an offender, in the non-legal sense, in the, I guess, dictionary definition sense, yeah, he is. But what I was meaning, I should have specified. Sorry, I should have specified. I was a bit vague, so that's my fault, Nate. That in the documents, there's nothing like he didn't do anything to Virginia Giuffre. There's nothing that any of the women are saying that he did to them. That's what I'm saying. So what Trump's trying to hide is the extent of his closeness to Epstein, and the fact that he may have felt like in some way he was indebted to Epstein because he did introduce him to his wife, and that may have made their relationship a little skewed and unbalanced, and that Trump to save face, doesn't want any of this to come out. And in the process of trying to cover this up and then doing a 180 makes him look even more suspicious. So what I was really going to say was, if Trump had have been transparent from the beginning and ripped the Band-Aid off, so to speak, rather than trying to just pick at it and play with it and pull it ever so slightly, or just ignoring it at all and hoping it will just go away on its own, which it won't. It's way beyond that at this point. He should have owned up and spoke, in depth about the extent of their relationship, how close they were, what he saw, what he didn't see, in a sit-down interview with a respected journalist that isn't from Fox News, that is independent, that isn't, that will challenge him on things. And I think that's, what Andrew did, and it went to shit for him because he was lying. He did have stuff to hide, and he played it the wrong way. And I think Andrew is accused of more offences against women. I'll come on to that he's been accused of trafficking more women to the UK, other than Virginia Giuffre. That there's 2 new women that have said that he did do that, and that's been released now to the public. Those complaints had already been made to authorities, but we didn't know about it until now, until the disclosure from the DOJ. And the Met investigated it 3 times before, the Metropolitan Police, the allegations against Andrew, and found that there wasn't enough to prosecute. But I think now, and the speculation now is that there will be some pressure to move and to be action, because Andrew's a commoner now. He doesn't have the royal title of protection anymore, so they can get him a lot easier. B, public pressure's mounting, so that public pressure's mounting, and there's allegations of favoritism, because obviously it's blatantly obvious that Andrew did it, but he's not being charged, he's not being questioned or anything like that. So I think that is down the line. But like I said earlier, before it gets to that point, I'm pretty sure he would know and would run to Bahrain. I'm shocked he isn't already in Bahrain. I think it's mainly down to the fact that he's a stubborn get who thinks that, he's so entitled, he doesn't think he should leave, which would be the best thing for him. But yeah, he was supposedly on the Lolita Express with Melania. Yes, that is another thing that he didn't want out there, the closeness that they had, that he was on there. And this is questions. Did he see any young women, young girls, and did he ask why they were there, and what did he know? And he has a responsibility to answer these questions. He has more of a responsibility to answer these questions because he's the leader of the free world. He needs to be at this congressional inquiry hearing, as same as the Clintons. All of them need to. But if it was my perfect world, they'd all be criminally charged, and questioned by. Seems like it would need to be an international court in The Hague, because of how it's cross borders and all these world leaders. It would have to be The Hague doing it, the International Court on Human Rights. I think that could be the only possible court that could do it. Because this is a matter of human rights. It's trafficking, it's sex abuse, and rights of people have a right not to be trafficked, have a right not to be abused. So I think that it certainly does fit that precedent. And honestly, I'm surprised that hasn't been raised as a possibility. It's never going to happen because of the balance in my lifetime, sadly. But maybe in my children's or my children's lifetime, if I have them, there will be accountability for these people, or above some kind of inquiry, real charges. You know what I mean? But yeah, true. But we still don't have all of them yet, and his name is still redacted, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, exactly. And ixnay on the fact that I'm an immigrant and I'm trying not to go too hard on a guy that could fuck my life up and send me back to Europe if he wanted to. So yeah, I am holding back on him to a degree. No, I mean, not really though. I am, saying that he has a right to answer for, and I am suspicious that he could be there and not know about it, and that he has this reputation of being such a womanizer and wouldn't have indulged himself like that. Same as Clinton. You know what I mean? But yeah. There is a worry that by speaking out like this, that there might be repercussions for me. But I think that there's more important people they go for first. So yeah, I don't think I think maybe it's just a worrying thought. But yeah. I don't trust the files because they were scrubbed and there's 3 million that still haven't been released. Exactly. I always knew from the start that things were going to be held back. Like I said earlier in the live, under the, the false line of to protect national security. But that's falsely placed. What the public is demanding is absolute transparency and redactions for victims, not for perpetrators. And there are redactions of perpetrators, and not for victims. Victims' info has been doxed, like I said at the start of the live. It was leaked. They were doxed. And it puts them in a really precarious and dangerous position. And yeah, thanks, Neat, for understanding. Yeah, but I guess I have gone in pretty hard on him because I can't help myself. I'm a rebel. You know what I mean? I've still said it, but it's like I'm not going in saying though Trump's a dirty pedo and a rapist and all that, and he's a like going that level. I'm not. I'm just saying there's questions he needs to answer, you know what I mean? Like whereas Americans born in America have a lot more rights than I do, and freedoms and privileges than I do. I'm expendable. I'm an immigrant, I might be white and I might be from I guess a country that they would see as friendly, but still, no one's position is safe, shall we say, in this day and age, which is very worrying because I'm not threatening violence and I'm not inciting anything. I'm just raising concerns, valid concerns about leaders, and that's it. They're only showing a small portion, exactly. I think he's worried more than just the closeness. There are credible reports from women who claimed he raped them as young girls. Exactly, and that's something that he needs to answer to directly. If that's not true, that's not true. And he should. Anyone accused of that. I mean, me personally, I would hate to live where I would hate a moment where I would be accused of that. Of course, it would be false. But I would personally not want to skate around it. I would want to take it to trial immediately to clear my name. You know what I mean? And like when people don't do that and want to settle it civilly, or avoid prosecution in any, or avoid the courts in any way, that's suspicious to me. And that's all I'll really say about it. That is suspicious to me. Because like, let's just reiterate it. It's like you get it out as soon. If you've got nothing to hide, you don't mind it being out in the open because it's all a load of lies. You know, you're confident that you'll be able to get past this. But obviously, you know, people make this argument, oh, with sex crimes, you're guilty until proven innocent. Not at all. There's many people who have been falsely accused of sex crimes and have been cleared, and we as a society accept that they didn't do those things and that they were falsely accused. Like, yeah, if you've done nothing wrong, you should have nothing to worry about. You know, I've heard the governor. I heard Florida governor is in the files, accused of SA. Yes, he is. And there's many different political figures in there accused of it, and it's a sick, you know, like I said, I described it as a spider's web, you know what I mean, and that's what it is, you know. It's all encompassing, and it gets everybody, you know, who's of power. But yeah, it's that's a major thing. There's people all over, and all over the place who are involved in it, and like I genuinely now think that you can't get into a position of power in America or in Britain or in anywhere really unless you do something like that, unless you carry out some SA, unless you're recorded compromising yourself in some other way. So yeah, Ron DeSantis, compromising yourself in some other way, like drugs, other crimes, violent crimes, murders, something that could ruin your image. You have to do it, and you have to do it on film. And that's why Epstein's island, you know, the temple or the church that he had in there for all of his Kabbalah sex rituals and shit that he was doing, that was all hooked up with audio and recording equipment. You know, like why do you think he was doing that? This is to blackmail people. This is your induction to the club, to the New World Order. You blackmail yourself so that they know you're not going to break ranks, and if you do, they can ruin you, and they can use you as a scapegoat. You know, and you know that, and you're made to know that, and these, you know, years ago, someone talking like this would be dismissed as the ramblings of a possible schizophrenic or psychotic or a drug addict. Someone who's just completely out of the gourd, to put it in common speak, and basically, you know, that's now been proven that this is the case. That, you know, what was dismissed as the ramblings of mad people is now reality. You know, so next time, you know, someone is saying something that, you know, may seem implausible, you know, obviously you've got to exercise skepticism and be skeptical about things. That's intelligence. But don't just dismiss someone because it may sound implausible. I think now more than ever, people are beginning to realize that all things are possible. That reality, as we have been led to believe it, is a lie. And that there's a lot of things that we don't understand and that we're only just coming to terms with. But yeah, when I was in my teens, my friend and I had an experience with the guy in France that they found unalived in jail. Nothing happened, but it's a crazy story. Oh my God, that's terrible. That's awful. Yeah, I'm glad nothing happened. Like Val said, you know, really, really close break there. You know, terrible. I'm glad you felt comfortable to share that with us, because that's a very vulnerable thing to say, and I'm glad that people are able to be vulnerable here and to get real, because like I'll be vulnerable and honest with you and real with you guys as much as possible, you know what I mean, so long as I'm not like intruding on other people's privacy. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be as transparent as I can be with you all, and that's my pledge to you. You know, because I'd expect you all to be the same with me. But yeah, I really appreciate the interactions and chat today. Like the you know, there's been for probably one of the first times in my lives, there's been so many comments. It's been hard to highlight them all and get to them all and to address them all point by point, and that's just amazing. It shows you what a great chat we've got, you know. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here. God was looking. I completely agree with that. I think that God, the gods, the universe, guardian angels, whatever you want to believe in, nature, you know what I mean? A universal force of good, of light, whatever it is, I believe in that. You know what I mean? And I believe that with that energy of love, of pureness, of balance, of harmony with nature and with the world, we can beat these people, these rapists, these murderers, these psychopaths, because we have a lot more than them. They may have money, they may have power, but they don't have love. They don't have friendships. They don't have them like we have them. They have transactions. They don't have real friends. They don't have real loved ones. And they're very, even with all the materialism crap, very, very miserable people and hollow. And our advantage is that we can feel things. They can't feel them. And we can experience things and we can enjoy things and we can get pleasure out of good things that give off good, positive energy into the world. So like I said, that they can't control your mind. You control your mind, and you can free your mind by not playing in their games, and you can shape reality in accordance with your own will, like they do. But you can do it for positive reasons, to bring more balance to the world and more peace and more harmony. And you do that through action. Art through action is how I term it, is the term I've coined for it. You turn your life into a work of art. You strive to have an understanding of yourself and of the world around you, and of empathizing with people, and your own place in the world, and try not to, doing your best not to harm others and cause harm, any kind of harm, emotional, physical, spiritual harm. Then you're doing that. You're putting out that energy, and that is in itself a form of rebellion. Having love, finding love, you know, having children, having a positive, functional relationship. These are all ways to rebel against these people, because they don't want this. They don't want you to be happy. They don't want you to be in love. They want you to be divided. They want you to be miserable, just like they are. They want you to be in turmoil. They want you unbalanced. Bobby Sands, the IRA hunger striker, he starved himself to death for to be recognized as a political prisoner and not a criminal. He said, "Our revenge will be the laughter of our children." And I don't think that quote has been any more relevant than it is now. Our revenge will be the laughter of our children. Maybe not our, if you don't have kids or don't have kids, maybe not your literal biological children, but maybe that means like the people of the future, the people who come after us. Our revenge shall be that they can live in a world where they don't have to worry that the people in power are, you know, sadistic psychopaths who may try to abuse their children or them, and manipulate them into going to war and to killing themselves, or to protect these people's gold, or to fulfill these people's sadistic power play agenda. You know what I mean? We can give them that. That's what we should strive for, because that's what we should aim to. Magic, you know, try to create magic, you know, because these people are practicing their own kind of magic, and it's a a really messed up kind of magic, a very unnatural kind of magic, a dark kind of magic. And there's place for dark magic in the world, but not their type. Not when it's so damaging to nature and to harmony. It causes an imbalance. You know, that's the issue. I'm talking about like bringing out light, radiating light, and balance. Balance means light when it's appropriate, but you can be dark as well. You love those who are your loved ones, and you hate those who are your enemies. And these people are our enemies, and it is right to hate these people because they hate us. They hate us. They hate us. They abuse, you know, us. They traffic us. I'm saying us because this is the people who are not the special people, the chosen ones, the powerful people, the victims of Epstein, the victims of these sex traffickers are all girls and women who didn't come from a background of having a silver spoon in their hand, who didn't come from privilege, who didn't have a name that made it so that their lives are completely handed to them on a silver platter. These are just ordinary people like all of us. If it can happen to them, it could happen to us. That's the way I look at it. And I think people need to, come to terms with that reality, that no one's really safe. People have been talking, some people have been saying, oh, I'm bored of all this Epstein stuff, Well, you clearly haven't looked into it very much. That's what I say to the people who say that. You clearly haven't looked into it very much, because what this means is that, like, essentially our entire world is governed by people who are, a type of energy vampire who like to suck the life and the joy and the aspirations and the creativity and the peace out of young children and feed on it. And in this delusion that it makes them more powerful when it doesn't, makes them more sick, makes them more detached from nature, more unbalanced. And they think that unbalance equates to power. Well, it doesn't. It's delusion. And in the end, these people will be held accountable. Maybe not in this world, but in another. Because I believe in the afterlife. I don't believe in the Christian way of the afterlife, but I believe that if you do terrible things in this world, you'll be held accountable for it in the afterlife, and you'll be made to pay for it. But for me, I don't think that that's enough. I think that if you should be made to pay double, earth and afterlife, if you do these kinds of things. And that's where we need to get as a society, where people are actually convicted of this stuff in mass, and there's not a scapegoat scenario like we've seen play out so many times. Crazy Amber and my friend and I didn't realize it until she watched the doc and reminded me of our experience. So crazy that there's so many stories, like women accepting them and men accepting like job ads and things like that, and then it turns into a trafficking situation, or a potential one, or a front for that. And I think people aren't prepared for it, because you don't expect it to be so blatant. I think the movies give you this impression by design that trafficking always happens. A woman gets bungled into the back of a van and driven off, but it doesn't happen like that most times in the West. It's done through grooming, and the movies don't want to show us that, because Hollywood is very much into that and into this world, and our perceptions on things are very much shaped in a way by media and entertainment. And once you know that those people are very much in this themselves, that they're not going to show you the true reality of all this. Hence why Eyes Wide Shut was cut, and I think that Stanley Kubrick was killed as opposed to dying. And I'm not the only person that thinks that. But yeah, I'm glad that you've all stuck with me for so long, and I'm going to get onto the Nancy Guthrie stuff now. But thanks for listening to all this Epstein stuff. I'll probably do a 20 minutes on Nancy Guthrie, and that'll take us to 2 hours. I didn't expect to go this long, but because of how great you guys in the chat have been, and how interactive you've been, and how much you've given me, you know, it's been a joy. You know, obviously it's a terrible topic to discuss, and it's awful having to talk about this traumatic stuff, and people who've been victimized and abused and ignored for so long, and not getting the type of justice just because it was done by people who have power. You it's also very medieval, isn't it? You know, we think we've come so far as a society, as a world, but we haven't. You know, we haven't. history repeats itself, and once you get down to it, you know, we as apes or sapiens, whatever you want to call us, we are a lot more primitive than you'd have us than we believe. We repeat cycles of destruction, and we're very easily manipulated and led by others. So, you know, that's on us as people, you know. But I think now, with obviously the internet and with media and information being more free, and people being able to get their own ideas and their own research out without censorship. Obviously, YouTube censors quite a bit, and this will probably not be pushed out into the algorithm. So if you haven't already, please hit the like, because I mean, I don't usually ask for that, but I do for topics when it's like stuff they don't want us to talk about, because I know it's not going to get out there, and I do want this to get out there, not for any kind of self-aggrandizement, but because I want people to know this stuff. I want people to be prepared to know what they're up against, essentially, because, you know, you're a lot harder to manipulate if you know how you could be manipulated, you know. But yeah, thank you for listening to me discuss the Jeffrey Epstein updates and what's been newly uncovered, and I'll continue as and when new things come out, and I'm sure that they will. And I'm sure that we're on the very, you know, tip of a huge iceberg right here, and it's just going to keep going and going and going, and I don't know where it's going to end. But stay tuned, and I'll follow it, and you can follow it with me. So now we're going to move on to Nancy Guthrie, and I'd like to hear anyone's initial thoughts. I know we had a commenter in the chat earlier saying that they think it was the step daughter of Nancy no, they think it was the stepson and daughter of Nancy Guthrie, not Savannah Guthrie, the anchor for the Today Show, one of the other children of Nancy Guthrie. And that was also my first initial feeling before it was announced by Ashley Banfield that the husband-in-law of Nancy's daughter, not Savannah, another one, was a suspect. But this wasn't confirmed by law enforcement. But they also said that there is no present danger to the public. And where have we heard that line before? We heard that line with the Reiners, where they said that there was no present dangers to the public and that we don't have a suspect. And I was watching Dana Bowling's stream earlier, and she's great. I follow her a lot for Reiner News, and she's really a good Hollywood insider, and she does true crime info as well. And she talked today and saying about how they it could be right, but I don't trust Ashley B entirely. I can understand that. I can understand that. And obviously people's sources can be liars, and people can, you know, have their own reasons to say lies and to, you know, take away the focus of an investigation. You know, if it was a kidnapper, and that would be
a tactic, I suppose, to distract law enforcement whilst they're, trying to lay low before they can make the exchange. But yeah, Dana Bowling was talking about on her stream about how, they've said that the LE have said that there is actually no suspect, but there is no danger to the public at the moment resulting in this. So, like her logic, I came to the same conclusion the second she said it, before she said it even, in my own head, that it's just the same as the Reiners, where they knew it was Nick. They didn't let it be known to the public because they didn't want to let him on that they knew. And so it's very possible that Banfield got a leak, and she shouldn't. I personally think that it was irresponsible of her to even say that whilst this investigation is being conducted, because if it was the stepson and her other daughter, not Savannah Guthrie, then giving them this heads up would allow them to potentially destroy, delete evidence, and would hinder the investigation. So there is a level of care you've got to take as a journalist, I think, especially one like her who is in the mainstream, who is high profile, who does have a huge audience. You've got to take some care in understanding that you can't be blabbing about stuff that could fuck up an investigation, because we want whoever's done this to Nancy Guthrie to get caught, because this is an 84-year-old grandmother, you know what I mean, who's never done anything wrong to anybody, who's a regular churchgoer going lady, and I just think has mobility issues, you know what I mean? Like, whoever's done this is one sick son of a bitch, you know what I mean? And that's the truth, because I find it hard to believe that it was a burglary gone wrong, because if you're going to screw a house, you're not going to take her with you, because she's an 84-year-old woman. She has mobility issues. She needed medication. And that's a lot to take care of someone if you're going to be holding them. And why hold them? Why hold them? If you're there to burgle, you're there to burgle. And it's not difficult to overpower or control or physically intimidate an 84-year-old woman and to get her to just sit still. You know what I mean? I'm fairly behind. Have they found Nancy? No, they haven't. They haven't found her yet. She's the only one reporting it and cites an anonymous BLE source. It could, yeah. But yeah, she hasn't been found yet. But it's a situation where I personally am very suspicious and skeptical of the idea that it is an outside party, because cameras were disabled within the house, and it would suggest and entrance was gained by force, and all this would suggest that the person doing this knew their way around. And this type of crime, like if it was just a housebreak, a burglary, they wouldn't have taken her with them. It would be too much baggage, too much heat. You know what I mean? That wouldn't happen. And then it goes to, why other reasons do people want old people to go? Inheritance, insurance. And I was thinking, well, Savannah's loaded because she's Today's Show anchor. It wouldn't be her. Does she have any other kids? Yes, she does. So this is exactly the thought process I had initially. I could be completely wrong. And if I am, I'm very sorry to her other daughter and her son-in-law for even thinking that. But as someone who is in true crime, we've got to put everything on the table. And this isn't personal. This is just business, as they say in the mob. This isn't personal. This isn't against them individually. This is just investigating. You know what I mean? This isn't saying it's them definitively or not. But the police have searched do have the other daughter's vehicle, and it's been made available to them by her to search. So that may suggest that the police are on that line. And obviously, we do know about the ransom notes that was sent to TMZ and to another outlet in Arizona, where this is all unfolding. Where this is all unfolding, and what's the link? Is something if anything's breaking to do with this case, could you please let me know so that I don't finish the live without addressing it? Because it's happened before where I've finished a live and then something's broken, or it's broken as I was live and I've missed it, and I'm like, oh shit, you know what I mean? So like by the my live's already basically outdated by the end of the live. But yeah, I could be misreading that. I could be in the middle of some of Neat's conversation. But yeah, they did send the notes. There was a ransom note sent to TMZ and to a media outlet in Arizona, and the link. The link in Ali's Discord. Right, I'll something going on. Right. It was a family statement. Right, I understand. Sorry, I was checked in Ali's Discord now. It's a family statement. So, what does it? If you've seen it, Neat, because I can't I can watch it whilst I'm on here, but because I'm on my phone, I can't play it, type of thing, and it will mute me, so I can't talk over it. So, if you could let us know what they say. I've seen just the thumbnail of it, and it's Savannah. So could you let us know what they say? That would be much appreciated. But yeah, they had the ransom note, as I said, and it was they said that the people wanted the money in Bitcoin, and that the account that they said to put the money in was recognized on the blockchain as being a legitimate one. But seems very odd for like a group of criminals to just kidnap a news anchor's mother and then do this whole type of thing. But Amber ATS News did mention to me earlier today, and I've been looking into this, that Savannah Guthrie interviewed some Epstein survivors. So this does link to what we were saying earlier, and that people have theorized that maybe her mother's been taken and possibly murdered in revenge for that. And I'm not going to say that that's impossible, because it isn't impossible. Of course it's possible. Of course it's possible. Of course these people who are, under threat, their lives, their reputation is under threat by their own exposure from these brave women. Of course they're going to get desperate. Of course they're going to do evil things. Evil people do evil things, and I don't sorry, I just got a message that I needed to look. Can someone else please? What does it say? Coffee? Yeah. I'd appreciate that, because like I said, I can't I can click off it. I can get off the StreamYards and go to another tab and watch it, but I can't watch it with you guys. And then on my live, it would just be dead air for a few minutes, and that would be kind of like shitty. So thanks, Coffee and Skeletons. I really appreciate that. You get you get some J bucks for that. That's why I'm going to be awarding people J bucks, because all my viewers, they're not real currency, but it's just something I'll say when someone does a good thing in chat, you get some free J bucks or J coins, whatever. I'm not starting a crypto scam. It's just something funny I thought would be a good idea to engage people. But yeah, I'll be excited to know what the family's update will be. But yeah, I find it very odd that a random criminal would just do that. So that I think that the chances that this is in revenge for some interview that Savannah did with Epstein victims is very possible, very possible. But I'm also leaning more towards the fact that this has been motivated by someone very close to Nancy Guthrie, perhaps one of her other children, and the motivation may be financial, and that's my theory, because of how many cases I've seen that are like that, and just from experience, basically. And but like, you know, I could be wrong. This is just speculation. We have to leave everything on the table, and not be prejudiced because we had an initial thought that it could be a certain way. I'm willing to go where the evidence takes me, and that's how everybody should be in true crime. You know, many people get tied and attached to theories because they feel that if they admit that they're wrong or were mistaken, that they're no good at true crime and that they're crap and stuff like that. You're only crap if you latch onto something that's basically and blatantly untrue. You know what I mean? Like, we're all in this together. You know what I mean? We're all trying to find the answers. You know what I mean? I don't see it as a competition, really. I see it as a group effort. You know what I mean? I see most things as a group effort. I am competitive in sports, but that's about it, really. I like to do things as a team, though, and that's the way I see it. And like, for example, right here, right now, we're doing it as a team. Coffee and Skeletons is checking it out, and she's going to fill us in on the deets of the family's statements. But yeah, it's an incredibly strange thing. Daughter's cars seized. OJ books sounded like they were asking for her to be brought back home. I was hearing from Samantha's Instagram. Thank you very much, Coffee and Skeletons. You get 20 J books, and maybe if I launch merch one day, that I can use that system as a way to give people, like, I can use it like discount codes and things like that. I want to do that. I want to bring out merch because I think that, and any money that I would make from it would be directly reinvested back into the channel. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be blowing it all on weed. You know what I mean? Don't worry. I spend my own money on my own things, but any money that I make from the channel will always be accounted for, and I'll publish. Like, I know I don't have to do this, but I will do this. I'll publish like financial audits so I can prove money gained from channel, and then show where it's been spent, how much has been spent on things like camera equipment, editing equipment, and other things like that. So that could be a potential way for people before I am monetized to invest in the channel and to get something good out of it as well, because you don't just get to improve improve the channel and what I can do here. You know, sure, I want to be able to, you know, go on, do it on my laptop, because my laptop's a bit crap at the moment. It's store. I need to get a new one. You know, storage is filled with all my music related stuff, so I need to kind of save it for that. So my work and stuff. So I get a new computer and get some new things going. But I think I'll get a new computer anyway, regardless of any kind of funding from merch or anything like that. I will aim to get a new computer soon so I can play these videos. But I do think that the merch would be a good way for you to help out the channel for people to help out the channel and have something cool to work, because I'll design them so that it's nice and cool and psychedelic, but also affordable, you know, and that's something that I'd like to do. And either like I'll put the money back in the channel or donate to like various causes, like true crime related causes, like helplines for like domestic abuse victims and sex abuse victims and people with substance abuse, all these kinds of things that, you know, we talk about here. You know what I mean? Like, I think that would be a good idea to help and to put something back into the world from what we do. But yeah, teddy bears for Andrew's new home. Absolutely. He's gonna have to. He's gonna he's gonna have to probably move to Bahrain, because I don't think he's gonna fit all the 70 odd teddy bears into his little farmhouse in Frogmore, or wherever he's going, you know. But yeah, as for Savannah Guthrie, yeah, it's good that her not Savannah. As for Nancy Guthrie, it's good that Savannah Guthrie was on Instagram asking for a mother to be home. I don't think she has any clue about any of this at all. But like I said, I am side-eyeing the daughter. The daughter and the son-in-law, and because of the daughter's car was seized. But like I said, this doesn't mean anything. This is procedure for them to go through this. She was last seen by them, by the daughter and by the son-in-law. So that would be procedure to check through these people. And to go through that, that's just ticking boxes in terms of investigation. Most murders are committed by people you know. Most kidnappings are actually committed by someone that the kidnappee knows, and most of that is parents kidnapping kids in custody disputes. But obviously, you know, other scenarios happen as well. But obviously, I've let my theories be made clear, and I'd be glad to hear what some of you guys in chat think about the whole Nancy Guthrie situation. And I think it was Samantha, and I think it's her sister or her brother. So one of the other ones were making the appeal. That's interesting to know. I'm glad you think so, Val, and you can help me with the designs. I mean, you're very creative. You've got all a great vision. So if you have the time, I would really appreciate any advice from you, or just anyone in chat, really, about anything you'd think would look cool for merch, and anything that you guys would like to see, like tote bags or anything like that, or stickers that you can put on your lighter or anything like that, you know, or something like t-shirts, hoodies, whatever, you know. I'll gotta get the brand out there, I suppose. And yeah, and not that they harmed Nancy on Instagram. Right, I understand. It was them on Instagram. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. But yeah, I would like to hear, like, before I go, like what you guys think of Nancy Guthrie and what you think that the situation is, or do you think it's too early to say, or what do you think? Like, where are you guys leaning? You know what I mean? Because I'm leaning that this is someone close to her that's done this. I don't think that this is some criminal gang, but I do accept the possibility that this has been done in revenge for her speaking to Epstein victims. As a means to intimidate, but you know, I'm willing to go where the evidence takes me, as I am with everything, and I've got a completely open mind on this and basically every true crime case, because you have to, you know. And I just love to hear what you guys think before I wrap it up for the evening and I say buenas noches to you all. I agree, Christina. You know, it's sad to think that, and it's hard for people to think that, you know, people do that. But I think greed
is the motivator in this, and greed is a nasty thing, and it's a and that's greed is the motivator in, I think, all crimes, to one level or another. And greed was the motivator in Epstein, and whoever did this to Nancy, their motivation is greed as well, I think. And it's so strange, but I think it's someone close to her and the family. I agree. And it does give me, I know Amy Boston was in here earlier and she's been talking about JonBenet Ramsey. It does give me JonBenet Ramsey vibes because of the ransom notes being sent out, and how odd, how in the Ramsey case, the JonBenet Ramsey case, they had the ransom note written on the family's stationery and it looked like the mother's handwriting. So it does give me throwbacks to that case as well. So I am giving them cider, but I'll start wrapping up. Good night, Neat, and thanks for staying a lot longer than you said you could. You said you could only be here for a bit, but I really appreciate you sticking around, and you and Coffee and Skeletons for getting us the info about the family, and Christina and Amber and Val. Amazing. So glad to have you all here. And everyone who's been in, you all get 1,000 J coins, and you all get 1,000 J coins. So thanks so much for being here, and it's just been great to get back in the swing of things. Obviously, I did my live last week about Brendan Hughes that was a little different than the usual true crime lives, but I guess it's nice to be back in the regular sway of things, and I will be live again in the next few days with updates about the David case and probably more updates about this and Epstein. Seems like everything's just keeps going these days, and keeps getting crazier and crazier. So I hope you'll join with me on the ride in trying to dissect and understand it all. But yeah, you've all been amazing tonight, and I really hope that you all have a really nice evening, morning, afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. And I just like to say to you all, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Thank you very much.